And see that. There we go. So welcome, Michael. What's up? Oh, Nikita's here to say hi. Thanks for stopping into the chat. We already have a few viewers. So go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll start talking.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on the show today. This is nice evening interview here. Exciting to have the opportunity to speak about STEM and STEAM and science and technology. My name is Michael Lezinski. I'm a professor of practice at the University at Albany. I am in the College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity, and I teach in the informatics program. And we can talk about informatics because that's a word that many people is new to many people. Although I think the concepts and the work that we do are actually pretty familiar for those who are interested in technology. And I also, we've connected a couple times over esports. So I also am the director of UAlbany Esports, the university's official team in esports, and I do some work in gaming as well on campus. So I have a great opportunity to explore my interests and work in the field that I love, and to work with amazing students at the university. So I could talk about it for forever. So I guess we have about an hour or so tonight, but lots of great stuff to chat with you about, Scott.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's like any time we get together, there's always plenty to talk about. I'm coming in the same boat where I was in the technology, the science piece, and then lo and behold, I can integrate video games with that in gaming. Oh, what a great opportunity! So I'm excited about all the opportunities, and it's been exciting. I know you have been in this, and I don't want to get too much into esports versus the tech, but I will say it's exciting to be on the leading edge of something. I mean, you're on the leading edge of a lot of things, though. I mean, when you go and you look at where a field is, you kind of have that idea. It's like it's still the Wild West for esports, and it's still like no one knows what's actually going to happen in another year, let alone 4 months. So it is such an interesting place to be. And I know we want to get into a lot of the other stuff that you do at UAlbany, but I kind of want to know a little bit about, and I ask this of everyone I talk to, your story. How did you get to be where you are? Like, what was your passion? Did it you wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do this for a career? Or was it a slow process?
Well, it's a long story with many chapters, so I'll try to condense it and take the epic saga here down to the Reader's Digest version, if you will. I was telling a little bit of this story to my students. We had our first class this week, so yesterday morning we had Game Design and Development 1, which is a brand new class that I've developed for the university, and we're going to be building games and building prototypes and doing digital art and really going through that whole process this semester, and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I told the students that my father purchased our first family computer actually over at Sears. Sears, which is I think for the most part has kind of closed down or shrunk down considerably, and it was actually an Apple Macintosh computer, and they were actually in the appliances section right next to the washers and dryers and dishwashers of all things. I was fortunate that around maybe middle school or so, I had the opportunity to be exposed to computers. And that's really where I tell my students my journey begins. When I had the opportunity to play SimCity and to work with a HyperCard on the Mac and to use some really simple programs and play some games that initially was the simulators that really got me, just got my mind, going in terms of, wow, I can simulate a ecosystem in SimAnt, or I can simulate a city or a tower in SimTower. I was really hooked from that point on. I was always interested in technology. As a kid, I would kind of take things apart and try to put them back together, and put a little motor on a 9-volt battery and make it spin. And this was well before this maker movement, which I'm very involved with now, the idea of makerspaces and makers. This was well before the internet as well, which I tell my current college students, and then they get a good laugh about that. Forget smartphones and cell phones. I mean, when we were looking at the early days of computing, if you will, even some of the early Macs were not full color screens. They were, monocolor screens. And so I've been interested in technology my entire life and just fascinated by computers and by the growth of the internet. Here in the Albany area, I'm from the Albany area, and I would log on to BBS's bulletin board systems to communicate over text and play text games, text-based role-playing games and things of that nature. So I was always interested in technology, but at the same time, I had a parallel path. And for me, that was my background in the liberal arts and in the arts. So I come from a background where I have degrees in music, degrees in English and creative writing, and a lot of work in the arts. That's a big part of my identity and my experience. And just to kind of summarize the super short version of this story, I really think that my experience and my interest in many different fields is really one of my strengths. The idea of being interdisciplinary and in some ways kind of thinking outside of the box, thinking unconventionally, or looking at problems or things from different perspectives, I think has really aided me in this journey to where now I, teach at the university and actually oversee, in addition to the work with my colleagues, the college's Makerspace, the college's drone lab where we fly drones, the esports and gaming program that we're building out, many different areas, and they really are brought together through the idea of technology and the idea of the interdisciplinary nature of things. So,
You're a
I'm just as
man.
excited. What's that?
You're Renaissance man.
Well, like you said, I mean, I'm just so excited to be at that leading edge, and to wake up every day and see that there's a game engine that when I was a kid growing up, there was no way for me to program or develop a game. And today we have things like Unity or Construct or Unreal. Thinking about tools like Photoshop and some of the multimedia programs to record your own podcast. As a kid growing up, just to have access to a VHS camcorder was like a whole thing. Much less you have a phone, you can record, you can edit, you create, and then worldwide that content is available. I mean, it's just an awesome time
it's mind blowing
here.
And it's there's a lot of democratization of technology, but there's a lot that isn't as well. And I like what you're talking about with the art piece and the design. And I think that changed when, Apple was always a little bit more on that design edge. And I think when the iPhone came out and things like that, I think computer companies and technology companies in particular suddenly realized that they were missing something, right? That there was some aspect of design and form and function that was missing from a majority of technology. Because if you look at a lot of the computers and the technology that was made prior to, the iPhone and that era, it was really boxy and poorly designed. It didn't look good. And I think that we're coming around now where that more design artistic side is valued within science and technology overall, versus I think for the longest time it was kind of like, that's the humanities, we don't need that. Do you kind of feel that's like where you're coming from? That's what it sounds like, because you're kind of in that zone where it's like, form, function, design, all together.
So I teach so informatics, is the program I teach, and let's just kind of maybe rewind a little bit to there, because that's, informatics is really technology plus another field, whether it's bioinformatics, whether it's design and user interface and user experience, where I teach some classes, data analytics and visualization. These are areas that can be applied across any industry, across any discipline, if you will. My relationship with the arts is, I was speaking once again to my students, yesterday, where it was like, there's so much to learn from, whether it's a poet or a dancer, a sculptor, a painter, a musician. There is so much about their craft and about their process, which then I would argue, how can we apply those sorts of ideas to our work, whether that's in coding and programming, whether that's in designing apps, accessibility, user interface, user experience. I think with computing, of course, we have the ones and zeros, but we have to have that human interface. And so I think what Apple has made a mark on design, industrial design, without question. The idea of simplicity, the idea of how you interact with something. Of course, just the gestures, the pinch, the swipe. There's a poetry in that idea of this is an enlarging motion. Somebody had to invent that 2 fingers, the swipe, and it's a pretty simple thing. I also think it's pretty deceiving because it's a pretty profound thing. The idea of you can see a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that learns that design language of how to enlarge something on their tablet, and so. There's always Apple versus PC and that whole thing. But I think the thing Steve Jobs understood is that he really wanted to work with education, and he really wanted to work with artists and designers and musicians and creatives. And, I think that's made the world of computing a better place. There's still always different ways to do things. But I think we owe, as technologists and users of computers, we owe Apple, we owe Steve Jobs, a lot, because they've really influenced how we interact with these, as I said, these ones and zeros.
There are still those people that set up their phone so when they swipe down, it goes up. They're still out there.
Everybody's got their own, and I wish. It's funny because I'm such a geek when it comes to the way I interface with things. In the new version, I haven't had a chance to check out the new version of iOS just yet, but they actually allow you to do even more with customizing. I'm really big on. I love when computer companies, software companies give you the ability, whether it's light mode or dark mode, or pushing something here, pinning it to there. Computing is not a one-size-fits-all, and as I said, I get pretty cranky if the wrong interface is there for me to interact with. So,
and I think some of that,
each their own.
Yeah, and the user interface is important because you could have that ability, but it's buried in sub-menus. And it's like, oh, you can actually do that with this program, but it's buried down in sub-menu D, and you'll never find it unless you actually go on and find a YouTube video that shows you how to find it and change your settings.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like OBS is like that sometimes, where it's like, oh, you can do that? Okay, where is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in this menu, and this menu, and this menu. You have to click this to then see it down here. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Right. That's part of that user interface, which I think is very important, and that gets to a side conversation of, and I'll mention this because I've been talking about this a lot in a lot of these conversations, the importance of having diversity in your design team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because absolutely. I'm not going to think of the same user experience as a woman might, or someone with a different background than me might. Mm-hmm. It's up to that individual person to kind of how they interact with something to kind of figure it out. Do you have some experience and can talk to that at all?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I feel like you almost were hanging out in my class yesterday, because this was one of the areas that we touch upon. I touch upon the idea of diversity is it's a key component, and that is that is an understatement, to say the least. At the University of Albany, we're very committed to diversity, without question. Within our college, diversity is something that diversity and inclusion. This is an idea that's very important. Having multiple perspectives and multiple ways of looking at a problem. I mean, on a team, as you said, nothing can be nothing can be more of a problem than to have a team made up of one way of looking at things, one perspective, it's just not going to be an effective team. You're not going to think about things, whether it's from different users or from a different perspective. It's almost so big of a topic that for me it's even difficult. What's the inroad here? But from the perspective of design of software, design of games, design of projects, if you will, we spoke in my class about just how students who have lived in other countries or who have traveled, different cultural backgrounds, gender backgrounds, backgrounds of any sort, there are your work is stronger because of diversity. I mean, there is absolutely no question. And that's one of the things I love about teaching, because I learn from my students. I tell my students on day one, I've been on this journey here. I've got a lot to, provide you in terms of resources and information and knowledge and experience and wisdom and so on and so forth. But let's make this a community of practitioners. Let's make this about us as a group. I don't want this to be a one-sided, I'm the only person, here's the information, you just write it down and take my test. That doesn't interest me at all. What interests me is, having a student who's lived abroad for example, a student who's from Asia, who says, like in South Korea in particular, the network infrastructure, the internet infrastructure, the way of approaching computers and technology, in many ways, in many areas, has been well more advanced than some of the systems we have in the US. And I need that information. I need to understand what it's like in different parts of the world, whether it's more advanced or whether it's developing. And we all need to have that discussion together. There's nothing worse than just having blinders on and being in your box and just thinking about your own world. So, diversity is key. We do a lot of work with our students and with our campus community so that we have many voices at the table. And I tell students, this is Black History Month. So February is African American History Month. And we spoke about that yesterday as well. And I say to my students, this is a month for me as an educator to bring awareness, to the history and the impact of African Americans in this country and throughout the world. And this is an opportunity for me to listen and for me to learn. And to be a part of that discussion as an educator, it's a privilege to be there, and I'm dedicated to listening and to learning just as much as I would ask my students to. So it's great you brought that up, because we sometimes, I think, in the world or in the field, we might lose perspective with that, but it's very important.
Yeah, and I'm sure the student population of SUNY Albany that I know of is very diverse. And because I'm technically kind of a part student through the master teacher program right now. I do.
Excellent.
I would usually have a parking permit, but I don't need one because I can't go to campus.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But you have at least one of your degrees from SUNY Albany. I have two. So
yeah, I'm a graduate. So I actually, it's funny. Like I said, my whole extended long story is more than we have time for today. But I was able to earn one of my bachelors from UAlbany in music composition. So I studied music, electronic and classical, and then I have a graduate certificate as well as my master's in education as well from UAlbany. So being from the Albany area, I've traveled, had the opportunity to travel throughout the world. I've earned another bachelor's at another SUNY, but I love the Albany area. I'm very proud to be a graduate of UAlbany and to be a part of the community there as a professor and the work I do with students. For your students who are from the area here, who will be going off to college in many different areas and different parts of the state or the world or the country. I went to SUNY Brockport for my first degree, which was wonderful, 4 years, and I loved that time. It was a very amazing time for me. And I came back to the Capital District because I love the area. I love nature. I love, everything that we have here, the proximity to, New York City and Boston and just the area. And so for your students, some may go far, some may go near, but even here in the Capital District, there's a lot of great resources. And I know sometimes when I was in school, it was, if you're staying in the area, you're not as cool as somebody going, cross country or across the state or whatever. But, we've got a lot of awesome stuff here in the region. And boy, that's just as good. I mean, you got to find the path that works for you.
We do. Well, speaking of the school, let's go ahead and take a look at the building that you're building. This will be our promo period for University at Albany. Here we go. And do you want to say something briefly? I'll play the video. It's only 1 minute and 23 seconds, but
yeah.
if you want to say something first.
Let's see. So I'm going to pull up the Twitch stream here. There we go. Okay. So yeah, and we've got a OBS program here we're communicating under. So there's a cool technology loop that you've got me in here as well, Scott. But I do see the Twitch stream now, and I do see the new building.
Hey, we're getting rated.
What did we get? We're getting rated.
Prof. Yeah, party of suck, and welcome in.
Awesome.
Welcome in. We're just about to take a look at a new building at UAlbany. Thank you for the follow, Wizards Professor. Thanks. And what were you guys chatting about tonight over at the Cogs like Prof? What were you guys doing tonight? We're talking about makerspaces, drones, probably esports, action potentials. Yep. All right.
Wow.
Nice. You can have the table near the window. Yes. Okay. Sweet. Well, we're just about to hear about the new building and a little bit about the programs that we got going on. So
yeah, so feel free to, the video is just music, so you're welcome to, if you want to mute the music, I can narrate a little bit over it or whatever works for you. This is eTech, so this is a new building on campus at UAlbany that my college will be moving into, as well as some other colleges. We're excited. I think it's 450,000 square feet. And it's a brand new state-of-the-art building. It's going to be a LEED certified building. And one of the things that we're excited about is the Makerspace is going to triple in size. So we're going to be able to serve more students and do more work in our labs for research. We're going to have state-of-the-art classrooms and collaborative working spaces, and we're just super excited. We're thrilled. The College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, Cybersecurity has been growing very, very quickly. My program in informatics has also been growing, so we're really excited just to now have the space to, do interesting, do interesting work, and to be able to offer more opportunities for our students. So I think this has been probably about, don't quote me if I'm wrong here, but it may have been 4 or 5 years that they've been really developing this building, and we're looking to move in this summer. So fall of 2021 will be coming online.
Cool. I'll go back just so we have perspective here at the beginning. So
yeah,
title there, Albany, New York. You have a question here. Wizards Professor, integrated drone course?
So we actually have a drone lab on our downtown campus. Our college has a drone lab, and if you can imagine a basketball court, and the story is that Governor Cuomo, our current Governor Cuomo, his father played basketball in that basketball court when he was here in Albany, lived downtown, wanted to shoot some hoops. So what we did with that drone lab is we took essentially a gymnasium and we put up high impact netting around the whole court, if you will. We put foam floors down so that the equipment was safe. And we use that for aerial robotics. We use that for ground-based robotics and drones. We work with local organizations, first responders, firefighters, New York State. We're seeing drone usage, by the state and by different organizations. We're also seeing the interest in commercial drones, drone flight. And maybe one day we're going to get our packages in the mail, or we're going to get, in Africa they're sending medicine. It's really going to be fascinating to see how drones and robotics are going to impact our lives. And we have literally a purpose-built facility, climate controlled, well lit, just for utilizing this equipment. So we do indeed have a drone course, and we do drone races. So part of the fun is obviously the research and all of those components but it's also racing drones and flying drones through obstacle courses and having ground-based robots with FPV cameras doing different challenges to navigate different courses and terrains and different objectives. So that's a lot of fun also.
It's like, where was that when I was a kid?
What we dreamed about, like to take the RC car out and road, and one day, that day is here.
I had that RC car. The best part about that car was if you forgot to turn it off and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and it just starts going because it gets some stray radio signal at it. So
or the batteries too, the AA batteries back in the day. It's like you used to have to buy those things by the box load. They didn't have the lithium stuff that they have today. It's pretty wild.
Yep, and this is SUNY Albany. Yep, and we're excited about. The campus has just changed completely from when I went there for my first degree back in like 2003. I still had to go into like a library that had books to make copies and pull out journals. It was like right after that they had the new science library and everything was built. So right after that. So.
Yeah, and the libraries. So within CEHC, we have the School of Information Science, and we actually have a wonderful master's and PhD program in information science, and we have a great relationship with local libraries. Many of our students graduates work in libraries, Albany Public Library, and throughout the region. What's amazing? I'm on campus to go pick up my interlibrary loan books.
Hey, thanks for the follow.
We got another, I heard an alert. Books, it's interesting. There's such a place though for I say traditional, but books. There were some materials that I couldn't get online or some really well-written books that I'm researching for the games class on the history of games. And boy, they pull in books from, in some cases, all over the world. Libraries, they've always held a special place in my heart, but even in a digital world, they're I think a critical component in the space of education, but even in the community as well. Scott, many libraries not only have books, but many of them, like I think here in Bethlehem, they have a 3D printer, and they have Makerspaces, and they have technology loan programs, GoPros, and telescopes and things like that. So that's kind of cool to see them offer services in that area too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem I find with a lot of the maker spaces is that you get the 3D printer and then you call it a makerspace. You might as well get some straws and some duct tape and some popsicle sticks. You can call that a makerspace too. And a lot of times there's that initial setup cost is paid for, but then you realize that, if I got to buy more of this spool of 3D printing stuff, it's going to be another $100. So I think sometimes that initial investment can be there, but it's hard to kind of keep programming running and finding a meaningful way to use that space to make it worthwhile. And I know you've made it worthwhile. We'll show some of these pictures I think that you had as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you there are pictures of students in here, so I don't know if
Yeah, those. I think the gallery I sent you is all public information there. We've had a lot of projects in our labs that we're really proud of. One of the most recent ones is mobilizing to think about how we can help those. With respect to the pandemic. So last spring. During March, it was a pretty scary time for a lot of us because there were so many unknowns. And, for me, it's about kind of keeping my ear to the ground with respect to technology. It's always just reading blogs every day and being on social media and seeing what's happening in the world. And a lot of the stuff I follow in the 3D printing world started to pivot and talk about how 3D printers could be used to make face shields or ventilator parts or prototypes or different objects as the supply chain hit a little bit of a spike. And you couldn't get materials, and so we were approached very early on by some local organizations, first responders, hospitals, and they said we need help if you can help us with face shields. So we printed over 7,000 face shields. CEHC printed over 7,000 face shields, all at a donation to anybody who needed them. Really, whether that was our local hospitals here, our first responders, we provided them to campus, local charities and soup kitchens. And so for us, it was about, we got the printers, we've got the knowledge, we've got the filament. If we need to order more, we're going to order more. We developed a group of over 50 volunteers, faculty, staff, students, community members, and it was the least, from my only personal opinion, it's the least we could do. I view the people helping out as heroes, really. And if that means I can make a 3D printer, in the background throughout the day and the night, just cranking away different, little elements to help them, by all means, that's the least that I could do. So these pictures are actually from the vaccination site, which is another site that we have on campus at UAlbany. We have a testing site and a vaccination site. And I was there on Monday of last week. We actually donated these ear saver kind of devices, if you will. And it's a really simple piece of plastic. And what it does is it makes the mask or the masks or the protective gear not pull on your ears. So there are soldiers, there are nurses, there are volunteers at that site literally working all day, 8-hour shifts throughout the week. And so they reached out to us and they said, do you have any of these? And we dropped off 250 of them. And once again, it's the least we could do is to give them a little bit of comfort and to utilize our technology, not just for technology's sake, but actually to help people. And for me, that's the name of the game. So we actually got another order last night for 1,000 face shields from New York State and from these pods that are doing testing and vaccination. And so this week we've been just kind of crunching our numbers, getting our printers fired up again to, make that happen as quickly as possible. So, that's one way that we're doing the education, we're doing the learning, we're doing the, the experimenting, the prototyping, but ultimately, we want to help people. And this is a great use case for our students. It's a real world example of, a 3D printer or some of the different emerging technologies that we have in our makerspace.
Cool. Awesome. Oh, and Prof, thanks for the raid. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. And appreciate the support. Everyone else, if you have any questions, I know there's some chatter going on. I don't know if you see that, Michael, of some other SUNY folk, hanging out.
I don't have the chat window open here, but I
Okay.
see it on the screen. It's I'm on my laptop here, so it's a little condensed. But we actually worked with some other SUNYs as well. When this project came up, we have some colleagues down in Oneonta, New Paltz, and other SUNY folks reached out to us, and we've been collaborating, on this project, the face shields. It's about sharing information too. So I'm a product of the SUNY system and love the SUNY system. So it's always nice to hear from other SUNY folks.
So you have a question here. Wizards Professor says, love to hear more about your gaming history course. What's on your bookshelf? What's the assigned reading for that course?
Well, I don't have it down here. So the class is actually game design and development. So it's a class about making games and prototypes. We're looking at it from the perspective of mini games. I tell the students we're not going to make Call of Duty on day one or this semester. That's a game that requires hundreds of people in many disciplines across the world. We're going to be making mini games and 2D prototypes. And so we're going to be making games in game engines and working with art and all the multimedia assets, but just knowing a little bit about the history and coming back also to the idea of diversity, Scott, we're going to be looking at games from other cultures in other parts of the world. And we can learn a lot from different games that have, been played by people over time. I mean, one of the films we're going to watch is a documentary on Go, on the game Go, which is one of the oldest games around. And the documentary looks at Google and how they developed artificial intelligence to essentially play one of the world's best players. And it's a really fascinating integration of technology and computing and artificial intelligence. But it's also a great perspective on that game and the history of Go and games that have been played over time. So in order to do that, as I said, I've got a bunch of books I've gotten from the libraries on interlibrary loan and different resources, looking at the history of gaming and sports and play. And boy, there's some fascinating, it's to me fascinating. We think about gaming today, gamers gaming. You have to have a 3080 graphics card, solid state, hard drive, 64 gigs. If we think about it in the digital perspective, but when you think about early games, early board games, just the scarcity of resources, the scarcity of paper or color ink or paints, or we have dice that come out of a dice machine. They're injected, molded, and they're perfectly weighted, and they're decorated. And dice were stones or bones or different objects. And so for me, it's just a fascinating look at the history, the cultural aspect of gaming, looking at the history. So we're informed when we get to the digital tools, then we can make interesting games that are just beyond. I told the students I really want to make some interesting games that really showcase who you are. Of course, there's all the FPS games and all the platformers, and so there's so many different genres. But boy, let's come up with something unique and that speaks to you and that you have your own personal background a part of. So,
yep,
lots of books, only so many hours in the day.
Yep. And, there's a lot of examples, though, of very good low budget games, even recently. You think of a game like Among Us, that became extremely popular. That wasn't made by, an entire, global team with Blizzard or Epic or something.
Three people.
Right. And and that just goes to show that you can really make waves and become popular or whatever, and make a good game without, heavy investment. I mean, you're still putting your time and your effort and your own money into that a lot of times, but doesn't mean that you're not going to, find success even at that level.
Well, that's a democratization that you spoke about, Scott, is that you have a tool like Unity and a game like Among Us, which is made by 3 developers, I believe, in Unity. Very lo-fi, very simple 2D graphics, and yet it was basically the game of the year. It was the game of the pandemic. It brought people together. Pretty simple from a technical perspective, even.
And
but
simple from
a really amazing
perspective.
Game.
I mean, they just took, Werewolf, or Mafia, whatever style of game you want, and took that game mechanic and applied it to a space situation. And so it just also goes to show that a good game mechanic, and you twist it a little bit and you can make it really good.
Yeah, it's a remix. It's a remix. It's
all games
it's
are
an
kind
additive
of remixes.
idea. It's an additive idea built upon a great, as you said, a great mechanic, a solid. You can still make a great platformer. It doesn't mean just because Mario is, really, I think the top of the top, but it doesn't mean that there are not going to be, great platformers. Braid was a good example of a platformer with a new time-based mechanic. The idea of rewinding time. It's just like, I think, any art form where you can have a pop song. It's a verse chorus bridge chorus, and that's pretty much the form for the most part. But look at what artists can do with that simple form.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be complex to be good.
Yep, it just has to be good to be good.
You got it. Yep.
I'm brilliant. Look at that. Okay, now that we're talking games, we can go on and we can talk a little bit more about careers as well as esports as well. I think before we get too far along. I mean, there's plenty of rabbit holes we could go down, but I kind of want to get into that scene as well. Talking about esports, I will add my Rainbow Six PS4 team won a match this past Thursday. So they had they'd already, now they're like 2-1 in the tournament they're in. So good for them.
It's fun, it's to get a win for the students, to get a win for our programs. We've got a big team, and we win and we lose, right? You're always going to win, you're going to lose games, but what a thrill it is for our students. At the collegiate level, we play against 80 schools. We've actually played in some pretty big tournaments. We've won some national championships as well, just in the past year that we've been going here, and just what a thrill! Like, for me to see my students, like, I was sitting in on a Rocket League game last night, and the communication, like the leadership, the teamwork, the call outs, the strategy, and these are all students. They're all separated. We're all on Discord, but they're in different parts of the state. They're in different computers and different. And here we are in a real time game against another. I think in this case we were against SUNY Binghamton, and it's just thrilling. I mean, it's just such a positive thing. I know you've done a lot of work at the high school level and in the community, and as a teacher. This is really the name of the game right now. It's such a wonderful thing. I think that we're both a part of and doing our best to provide a great environment for our students.
And I think there's an interesting twist, and I've noticed it with this team more than some of the other teams I've had, where I can't coach Rainbow Six. I know the basics of the game, that it's it's a real team game, but I've never played it. The leadership within the game really falls on the players, and and I see that with a lot of these games where as a wrestling coach, I can be on the sidelines yelling at them and trying to help them out. They get something, we can strategize between periods or whatever, and there's a lot of that with the coaching, whereas with this, and I don't know if this is ubiquitous with other coaches and teams, it's really just, okay, you're off, go do it, and they have to set up the bands for maps and all of that. They kind of have already figured out on their own through their team meetings to then implement before the game and in game. So it's a little different dynamic than I'm used to as a wrestling coach when I do esports.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, we run 10 different games. We run a game in every, we run as many games as we can to provide as many opportunities for our students as we can. And so it's like traditional sports, right? If I was a basketball coach, boy, there's no way I can coach volleyball, field hockey, bowling, baseball, tennis, and but in esports it's sort of like that, where you have, I mean, even the differences between League of Legends and Fortnite, two of the most popular games around, Rocket League, Madden football, you have such domain expertise in those areas. It is like, I make no attempt. I've got a student in Rocket League. He's ranked 30th in the world. He knows that game inside and out. I'm not going to be able to, add a lot of value for him in terms of those game mechanics. Where I add value as a coach is, the overarching, the 50,000 foot view things, the mentorship, the leadership opportunities, the structure I can provide. There is a lot of wisdom and experience that I can impart upon these students. But when it's game time and it comes down to League of Legends, when it comes down to Rocket League, we have students who are downloading, Rainbow Six is a good example. It's a game that I don't have a lot of experience with, but we have one of our captains. They're doing VOD reviews. They're doing map. I mean, they literally have a whiteboard in Zoom where they're looking at their paths and their movement. For me, it's about getting out of the way. It's about stepping out of the way, understanding what we need to do as a team in terms of our code of conduct, what our expectations are in terms of professionalism and the way we carry ourselves, our commitment to diversity and inclusion, overall what it means to be a part of a team. We work pretty hard to build all of that. When it comes to the game stuff, I'm smart enough to know when to step out of the way and let the students who are really raring to go step in and get in the huddle there and talk shop. Right. So, it's a really interesting space, and maybe we'll be at the point where I do have 10 assistant coaches, and I've got a League of Legends veteran, I've got a Rocket League veteran, I've got an alumni who I brought back for Fortnite. But as this evolves, you never know. We're not there yet, at least for where we're at. There are other programs in other places, other places in the world, but I think we're going to start to move in that direction, because gaming is not going to slow down, right? I mean, we're at least in this country, we're at kind of the tip of the iceberg here, but I can't see gaming slowing down. So I think it's only going to grow from here.
Right. And Wizards Professor says in chat that don't underestimate the power of having someone just be there to believe in you and in your talent, and that your passion's recognized. And that's for sure. And I think just, especially at the high school level, providing that opportunity for kids where that stigma of being a gamer is changing a little bit. And that's hard to change. And I think it's kind of a barrier we face at the high school level, where a lot of the adults in the building don't feel they're qualified to help the kids, where basically all you really need is just to be able to provide that opportunity. A lot of times the kids know what they want and what they want to do. You just have to kind of help guide them in the right direction for, where you want the program to evolve. And I think some teachers or, advisors and coaches feel that they have to be experts in the game or even in the technology sometimes, where you really don't.
Yeah, I would agree both with your comments and the comments of the person in chat there. There's the whole thing of is esports a game and those kids are gamer. I mean, I tell my students when I was a gamer, you were the sort of geeks and the outsiders and the nerds. I mean, that's really come 180 where 180 turn there, where you have people on the covers of magazine, you have Twitch streamers making millions of dollars, and I think gaming is cool now in this country and starting to move in that direction. But just having someone, as you said, to be supportive and to recognize the talents and the interests of our students. Not all of our students are going to be the biggest gamer in the world and have a career in it, but to see our students on our team become friends and meet other people. Now they're roommates, now they're buddies, they're going out for pizza, they're hanging out. And as we all saw during the pandemic, I mean, I host a weekly game night where we play Among Us and we play social games. It's just a way to connect. All of my college students, in many respects, are we were disrupted by being remote, and so we said, well, we have our team. We're going to continue that. We're the only sport playing right now because sports were suspended for a long time, unfortunately due to COVID. But our game nights too is like, if you don't have anywhere to hang out on a Thursday night, pop on our Discord. We're going to play Among Us. We're going to play Fortnite. We're going to play Smash Brothers. And just connect with other people and hear other people and speak with other people. And that's the value of that will stay with me for my career and for my life, because we all needed that. And I put myself in that category too, to actually hear my students and to be there for them and with them through gaming. I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that gamers had before the pandemic, besides just the ability to connect online, that maybe more traditional sports and clubs didn't, was they already had an established way to build culture online. Whereas, football programs or basketball programs or your art club might not have already had that established way to build community. Is it still hard with esports? Oh yeah, building community is hard online. It's always easier in person, but I think there was a learning curve for a lot of other programs as far as how do we connect with people. Then all of a sudden you have groups that before didn't use Discord starting to use Discord and other ways to connect online.
Yeah, and that comes back, Scott, to your one of your comments about jobs in the field and sort of opportunities in the field. Gamers understood synchronous technology and asynchronous technology before we were all forced to use it. Gamers have been using, many respects, voice chat, video chat, things of that nature. They've built their own PCs or they've modded games and customized games, and they're into STEM and they're into STEAM. And so I think that is really one of the skills. Those are the skills. Many of the skills that we really look to technology in today's day and age. I would argue any field you're going to go into, if you know technology well, you're going to be an asset. You're going to be someone people come to for assistance and for opportunities and for projects if you can utilize technology. And so that's one of the things we do. We have the esports team and the social night for gaming, but then we also have classes in these areas. And the same technology in OBS we're using here tonight, Scott. One of my students shared with me that, his father is actually using the technology. Many weddings and many funerals where people can't gather, whether it's to celebrate a wedding or to be with family to honor someone who's passed. He's involved with his father and his company to help provide those services. And so here we have gaming technology, basically, for the most part. OBS has a great foothold here in gaming, but that's the same technology that can also be used in many different areas in the professional world. So the technology and the technical skills students gain through gaming and through their interests and their passions, I think have a lot of real world payoff.
Right. One of the things that as far as careers and even applying into college. I was talking to my own daughter who's a gamer. She's a junior now, and she was running a Gary's Mod server for a long time, and she was a mod on it, and I'm like, well, how do you put that onto like a job application, right? Because you have a responsibility, you have been given a role within almost like a company. It's kind of like when you're leading a huge guild in World of Warcraft with like 100 people. How do you put that into an application that someone will understand what it is you do and what it is? Because it's hard. Like maybe you have a Discord with 150 people on it that you're putting together and you're helping moderating and running. How do you put that into an application? How do you put that into a job application? Do you have anything to say towards that?
Yeah,
Because I'm really
I do.
curious.
No, I do, because if I saw that on an application as an intern, so in my Makerspace and my various labs, we have interns. So we have 40 interns this semester, and they're the learning leaders, they're the mentors. They help welcome people in, train them on equipment, assist them in research, et cetera, et cetera. So if I saw that on a resume, I would say, okay, let's have a discussion, because right off the bat, you're, as you said, demonstrating so many of our areas, whether that's community development, community management, whether that's modding and developing of the software elements or the design elements, that's embracing interconnected real-time synchronous events. The project management aspect of that, just understanding, well, what should I do? Should I work on this patch? Should I work on this element? Should I do this? The project management aspect, the troubleshooting and the technical analysis. I say to my students, the one thing that is constant is troubleshooting. You're gonna, I don't care if you're running a Raspberry Pi or you're running a souped up gaming PC or you're trying to get your watch to connect to your phone, new software patches, new troubleshooting, new everything, it's nonstop. So those are all the skills. I think it's about the languaging and positioning those and packaging those into I tell all my students to tailor your resumes to the opportunities. So depending on where she would be applying or what the context would be, I would repackage or kind of look at positioning those to language that matches the position. But then I would also say that if I saw your daughter's personal project, it shows that she is engaging beyond just the textbook. So she's going to class, she's taking her tests, and she's doing what the kind of program is or what she needs to do for her, for all students. But she's taking it another level further, and she's creating, and she's making something on her own. She's following her own interests. The soft skills, the communication, the teamwork, the dedication, those are really valuable. And the software, I feel like the hardware, the technology, I feel like we can teach that. There's plenty of resources. We've got the books, we've got the YouTube videos, we've got the knowledge, we've got the experience, the labs. But those core skills, that I just mentioned, those soft skills, those are so valuable. Right. So if I saw that on a resume, I'd say, this is great. We need to have a conversation because this student is really applying themselves.
I just have this fear that I don't think that parents, like guidance counselors or other, or even the kids themselves realize that some of the skills they've developed in the gaming community are marketable, right? There might be a 15-year-old running this huge Discord server that doesn't realize that is a marketable skill. And that's something that, they could use, and nor does their parent, nor does the guidance counselor, because they might not even know. And so I how do we tell kids and get them to understand that certain skills that they have in gaming are marketable and should be, fostered and encouraged, and also work as the basis for setting new goals within a career or education.
Yeah, well, I think, Scott, the work that you're doing as a teacher, as someone who's visible, you've been on, I mean, we've been on a couple panels together, and I know you've been
Mhm.
on many panels and spoken in many contexts as I believe, New York State master teacher.
Yep.
And, just in the school, boots on the ground there in your school. I think it's about these conversations we're having today, the conversations that we're both having when we speak, conversations, this idea of building the culture, and for me, we I very much want to teach my students new skills and interesting skills. I want to lean into the work that they're passionate. Like for example, we had a student named Jin, and he is a video producer and videographer, and another student named Elijah, and I said, I want you on the team and not to play games. You're welcome to play games if you want. Elijah was on our Smash team, actually. But I said, I want you to be a part of our content creation group. And so when you look at a big brand like FaZe Clan, or you look at a big brand like TSM, it's
Mhm.
about the competitive gaming, but it's also about the graphic design, the video production, the cultural aspect of things. These are upwards of, hundreds of millions, if not billion-dollar companies. I think FaZe Clan is inching up towards that. So I said, you're on our team. Here's the jersey, and you're part of our content creation division. I'm going to have you film our hype videos and film some different content of our matches and things like that. And now these students are both working in video production. They're learning, they're using their skills in Final Cut Pro and
Right.
Adobe. They're bringing in the PNG alpha channeled graphics and making the lower thirds, and so these opportunities I think are out there. I think it's great in education that there are people like yourself, that are there and saying, yeah, gaming is a thing. We can do it in a space that's appropriate and falls in line with our code of conduct and everything we're trying to do as educators. And we can support and empower our students. And it's not just about being on the couch yelling at the game and winning or losing and playing the controller. There's some really great skills and things that are going to be a part of our students' lives in the professional sphere.
So Wizards Professor says, remember the dream of open badges? There are still some programs. I know our school, a lot of school districts have like this badges program where you can go in and make your own badge that then like other people have to try to earn, maybe using like different tools or, technology or whatever. And that's kind of like what I was thinking of as far as like, there's, Adobe certifications. There are certifications for a lot of tech, but there isn't for a lot of the gaming tech as far as certifications, right? You can't get Discord certified, or,
That may be
OBS.
coming though.
And that's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
might be coming down the line.
OBS
Because
certified or
yeah, even like I know Minecraft. So Minecraft, there are Minecraft certified educators.
yep.
There are different, I think those from our perspective, you and I will be those sorts of things we're always looking at in terms of our work in the field. We actually this year in terms of badges, we actually developed a brand new what we're calling a micro credential. And a micro credential is very similar to a badge in many respects. Basically, what it is you take my class in esports. You take a class in sociology in the class of sociology of sports, and then you do an internship with me in the actual arena, in the lab, doing the hands-on work. And what we've got there is we have the work in esports in terms of the industry. We have the very important interdisciplinary aspect of sociology, looking at how sports are a microcosm of society, and that's football, that's baseball, that's sports throughout the world. And then the internship is you in the lab, helping with the hardware and the software and everything. And it's basically a 3-course bundle. And students will then receive, this micro credential. They can put it on their LinkedIn. They can put it, in their resume. And I think for me, what it's really about is, like, I have some students who are graduating this spring, and it's cool because they're like, oh, I got to get this in before I leave. I'm really excited. Can you get me into this class? Can you get me over here? I think what it provides is some structure and some
Mm-hmm.
reinforcement, and also, the idea that is a micro credential, a badging system. Where does that go? Where does that get you? I think what it does is it demonstrates that you're invested, and
Mm-hmm.
it's part of a new system. Esports, gaming. I mean, gaming has been around, but esports in this country, I think, is really now starting to take hold. So, any opportunities to get our students charged up and fired up about taking classes and doing well, showing up for the internship, making sure you're really dialed in. Um, it's less about the badge, more about that's what we're giving our students. I think it's much bigger than just a little JPEG or the little PNG
it's the
file.
actual education they're getting, not the actual.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying? It's actually what
that's
they
what I'm
learn that's
saying.
important.
But yeah, just also say we have that micro credential. Like, hey, if you like esports, come do the internship. And actually be in the lab. And if you can do that and you're successful and you do well, you've proven to yourself and proven hopefully to your future employer and the people you're going to work with that, not only was it there and I took advantage of it, but I did it, I made it happen, and I did well, and I'm ready for that next opportunity.
Well, the hands-on experiences like the internship are what's, a vital piece, because there's so much as far as like the setup and how to run esports, particularly tournaments or LAN tournaments or whatever you're doing, that a lot of the esports startups or even established companies, that's what they need. They need people to be able to go in and troubleshoot and get things rolling. And I remember, I think you might know the story about like when they had the Fortnite championships and like at the Barclays Center, and like no one actually on staff there knew how to do any of it. They had to bring in everybody for that tournament from outside because no one in that stadium knew how to run an esports tournament. So
yeah, there's a lot of collaboration. It's the lighting, it's the sound, it's the stage and the rigging, it's the computing, it's the networking. There's a really interesting documentary, I think, on Netflix or online about Blizzard and Overwatch. Some of their early games where their local, like, there were issues with servers going down and their local system went down, and it was just I think this was out in the Staples Center out in LA, and boy, it's really fascinating. It's the same thing where the margin for error is just so small, and it's the same thing when you got a stadium like in Paris, the League of Legends finals. You have tens of thousands of people. You have a game where milliseconds matter. You have the lighting and it's phenomenal. I mean, it's just amazing to think about all of the moving pieces. There were events in the Bird's Nest Olympic Stadium in China, where they have the Olympics, and now they're having Overwatch matches and filling up the stadium. I mean, it's just awesome. I've never been to a big event like that. I've been to some of our local in-person events for our college, but I can only imagine the electricity in the air and it's just what an amazing thing. I hope when we're all able to get back together in person again, I'll be able to experience some things like that.
Oh yeah, those opportunities we missed out on this year. I know one of the things that didn't happen was I had arranged to have a local gaming company was going to donate a bunch of PCs to school, and yeah, that didn't happen. And not only that, but like the room I was going to use, like used for something else now. It's like
repurposed. Yeah.
Yep. Everything's storage. So it's like you start making some progress in what you want to do, and then a couple
I'm with you. It's just such a tough time for everybody. I'm with you. I'm sorry to hear that that's the case.
Hey.
We'll just have to keep keeping on, and
exactly. But yeah, I think one of the next things I think locally, and we started to do it before this whole thing set in, we're doing some more of the live events, either at the college level as well as the high school level, and then a little bit of both, because I really like the idea of my countrywide or worldwide is cool, but local speaks to kids more than global in a lot of ways, especially at the high school level, because these are the same kids. They might be cousins, or it might be their friend they knew on the football team, and it's getting to that local level, I think, really speaks to them. And then they see that there's also the whole esports scene it's not just in LA or in New York City. It's here. It's where you're at, and I think that's good for them to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's here we have I think the two brothers over at Claim to Fame that are doing a lot of local events, doing events just kind of at large. There's scenes like the Smash scene where like regionally students are driving to different tournaments and things. I was an athlete here in Capital Region, so it was always great to go up against in Section 2 the other schools and try to win the Section 2 title, or to go to states or something like that. So at the high school level, but as you said, I mean, there are cousins and friends and people here in our area, and you can have a student who's from a urban, in one of the cities here, compete against one of the students who, family might live out on the farm, and we can all get together and play some Smash or some Rocket League or some Fortnite, and have a good time. So I think in-person events, we've worked very closely with the ECAC. We're very happy to be a part of their program in the America East conference as well. They're all looking to do more. We're looking to collaborate actually with athletics here on campus. So, I enjoy going to see, sometimes we go out with students from our class. I say, you want to do an icebreaker activity this semester? What do you want to do? And one semester, a student said we should go to a basketball game and have pizza. And I said, cool, let's make it happen. So we all went out to a basketball game on campus to see our students compete. But we're talking about maybe in the future we could do at halftime or leading up to that game, we could be doing an NBA 2K tournament or a Madden tournament out with our homecoming out on the field there in the stadium on campus. So yeah, there's a lot of great. I mean, in person, it's really special. Where I don't know if I could speak for everybody, but it's a difficult time with the pandemic, and I miss my students. I miss my friends and my family, and when it's safe for us to all get together, I think it's going to be. It's going to be really nice, and as you said, it's easier to do some things in person, and it's I don't take it for granted anymore. Just be good to be around other people and play some games too.
That's interesting to me is that being in the pandemic did not stop a lot of universities from building esports facilities and arenas on their campuses. I don't know if you noticed that. It's like,
yeah, I did.
All right, no one's on campus. Let's do construction. Let's build an esports arena. It's like, all right, you're really, we're going to get rid of our music program, but we're going to build an arena. Okay.
Yeah, the timelines are always, it's, I think the pandemic really highlighted that esports is a thing, right? It's something that there's many benefits to it. The ECAC went from, I think, 20 or 30 schools now to 80 schools coast to coast and nationally. This is growing really quickly, and boy, of course, we never want it to be at the expense of any academic or anything else. That would be that would be a shame. But my hope is, here's the way I look at it. With esports and with gaming, the more universities, the more schools, the more people at the table, a rising tide really raises all ships. So if that means more opportunities for students on those campuses, more, in some ways, maybe competitive rivalries or what have you, it's cool to see people taking gaming and esports seriously, and it's cool to be a part of it too. So.
Yep. There are literally dozens of us. Yep. Now, my thought that I always have questions about for the college scene is, you have, like you said, you had a top 30 player for Rocket League, right? Ranked. How do you keep them in college instead of like going pro or, becoming professional Twitch streamers or whatever else? Like, what do you find that incentive to be at either UAlbany or in general for higher ed to get the kids to go to college instead of going pro?
Well, the interesting thing is, actually, we have not only the student in Rocket League, but we have a couple of students who are ranked internationally, very, very similar ranks, and they are actually pro. They're making, in some cases, they're earning prize money, earning thousands of dollars in some cases. And I think that's great. I want to support our students, in every way. In terms of being a college student, if it's for them, I want to contribute to their success and I want to help them. Now, if they're Ninja or they're the biggest, one of the biggest streamers in the world, we'll still be there for them. And maybe it is time to check out that path and see if they can. Maybe there is a window that they need to explore. I mean, Steve Jobs didn't really kind of graduate from school, right? Zuckerberg didn't graduate from Harvard. There may be windows of opportunity, whether it's esports or whether it's technology or music or whatever else in the world. So, of course, I would love to make sure our students do well and earn their degrees and stay in school. It's very important to us, academic success. We led the ECAC out of, I think, 70 schools or 80 schools or so. We had the number one number of students on the all academic team. So what I tell students is, you're on the team, you're gaming, you're practicing, but you're going to class and you're doing your homework and you're working hard, because if you're not doing that, you can't be on the team. You can't pursue these opportunities. We're here to be students first, and then we're here to develop our experience and our extracurriculars. So we had, I think, 42 students who had above a 3.2 out of 100 on our team, and that we're proud of that, and we make that a part of our culture, that it's cool to go to class and to do your homework and to take care of business and to earn good grades. And at the same time, if a student is ranked internationally and they got a tournament and they want to play in it and they can maybe even make some money or explore those interests, because of the way esports sits, we are not regulated by any sort of NCAA guidelines or guidance, or there's nothing against a student on their own time. If they were going to pick up a part-time job at the mall and earn their wage to help pay for their school, their textbooks and their education, well, they can get a part-time job playing the game that they love and maybe make some money. And as far as I'm concerned, that's great.
So as long as the NCAA stays out of it, we're good.
I think it's going to evolve, and we're going to see where things go. I'm not an expert in that area. We're in the America East. We're in the ECAC. Now, my philosophy, I'm not the one writing the rules and making everything, right. But my philosophy is, I want to support students and provide opportunities. And we've seen a lot of opportunities come through organized formal leagues like the ECAC. Who knows where things are going to go? It's a really interesting conversation. But, in the meantime, well, I mean, and always, for me, it's just about supporting our students. And if they want to be on the team, they have the time, they understand what we do, they're interested, we're more than happy to welcome them. And if it's not for them for any reason, or there's other things that they need to pursue, there's no hard feelings. We just want to help everybody get to where they need to. So
yeah, you do need that organizing body, and I know that in the high school right now, it's kind of the Wild West, even more so than it is at the college scene, I think, where there's just no single organizing entity. It's kind of like just join a league and have fun, and it could be some league of a bunch of other schools just through a Discord, or it could be a more for-profit or non-profit organization. It's depending on what game and what console you want to use and everything else. It's nuts.
Yeah, there is a lot of different ways to look at this. Where we've found the most success, ECAC has been around, I think it's a tongue twister, I think since the 1930s. So they've been running collegiate athletics since the 1930s, and the America East has been around for, these are the groups that do all of our traditional sports, our basketball program, our track program. So for me, traditional sports, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We understand what the code of conduct, we understand the expectations, the respect, the value of the rules, the referees, all of these things. And so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of esports competitions that are just for profit. It's a $25 to get in and you could win $1,000, but it's just the wild, wild west. And that's just to say it's like anything goes in any particular situation. And those don't particularly jump out to us as the opportunities that have the most value for us. I think it's we're not in it to try to get rich and to do all that. We're there to provide experiences that enrich our students. And so formal athletics and these conferences we've worked with, they've really done a good job for decades and decades, and we're happy to be working with them. And it's cool that they understand it. The ECAC, Dan Coonan and Lydia Pfister from the ECAC, that whole organization, the America East as well, they're visionaries. I tell my students that you're going to come back and see on the wall, you see the old pictures probably from the wrestling team or the basketball team on the walls of your school. You're going to you're going to come back to campus for homecoming in a couple of years with your families, and you're going to say, you know, I joke, I say, you're going to look at the black and white photo. It's not a black and white photo, but I say, you know, look at the black and white photo on the wall, and you say, that's the first esports team of this university. Can you see where, you know, where mommy is, or where daddy is, or where your uncle is? Our students are pioneers in this space. Our athletic conferences are pioneers and visionaries. Our administrations for enabling us to do the work that we're doing and to support our students. So I really, it's cool to be a part of all of that whole infrastructure, and to kind of link arms with people who are into doing that for the right reasons, and you know, kind of lifting up our students to play some games, have some fun, and see if we can, you know, win some trophies.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds excellent. I know one of the things that, you know, is a big thing with esports that isn't usually the case with traditional sports is the time zones can be a kind of a pain in the neck, especially at the high school level, right? So like if I have a team that has a 5 o'clock start on the, you know, PM on the East Coast, those kids are still in school and in class on the West Coast, right? So then it's like, okay, let's do 8 o'clock, right? And so they, you know, so there's this difference, and there's also right now at the high school level, there's the differences in are not really well laid out for size of schools. So like my small school could end up going against, you know, Bayshore, like in that Call of Duty tournament. It's like, that's not even close to fair. You know, like that has like, you know, they graduate 1,000 kids, we graduate 60, you know?
although I will say, Scott, I mean, it's like almost like the Mighty Ducks. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if your team comes out of the gate and just, I mean, and that's how we feel too. You know, at UAlbany, our program's a year old, and we, our college League of Legends team, unfortunately, the tournament was impacted by COVID. You know, the winners of the division would then fly out to LA and fly out to Riot headquarters and play in the you know, the big kind of finals match. Our League of Legends team, in the first year in our program, in the East, first year in our program period, you know, these are all brand new students. None of them knew each other. We were undefeated, and they actually won scholarships, financial scholarships from Riot Games, and you know, there was a potential that here we are in Albany in the first year of our program. You know, schools out in California, they've been doing League of Legends for 10 years. I mean, they got multiple League of Legends coaches, they got the whole nine. And there's the potential. It's almost like the Sweet 16. You know, in UAlbany made a couple years ago the big March Madness tournament. You know, we could have come out of nowhere and maybe gone to the big dance out there in LA. And what would be cool for your team and your school is like in that R6, you know, league, you guys going up against Bayshore and saying, "Oh, well, we're here too."
It could happen, but you don't
possible.
Know.
You never know.
You do never know. But I mean, as a wrestling coach, there was always the big difference because now they separate wrestling big school, small school, right? Okay. And you know, and you could have a stud, you know, at a certain weight class, you know, in a small school, and they know they can beat, you know, the number one, you know, seed or, you know, champion from the big school, but you have to wait until outside of, you know, section match or state match, you know, to have that competition.
Yeah. So okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I understand. It's been a while since I played and have been in the high school. So that's an interesting dynamic. But
so that's where I'm coming from, you know. But you know, esports is definitely different as far as, you know, as far as like the team sports versus the more individual, like Smash, or Fortnite solos. That's a whole, you know, different thing where it's, you know, that individual, which is, you know, kind of more like wrestling, where you're kind of going alone in a match versus with a team. So there's all different kinds. And one of the things I realized this year, because I was wondering, I'm like, why can't I seem to get a team together? And I realized that there were 4 different gaming systems, and there were probably about 8 games that kids wanted to play, but there were only, you know, even with, if you had 80 kids interested, that still divides things up unevenly. Like in the fall, like I'll have 4 kids that play, Rainbow Six on Xbox. I'll have 4 that play it on PS4. But I can't have a team, right? It's that type
Absolutely.
of thing. You're just like, what?
Well, that doesn't go away, Scott. Unfortunately, it doesn't go away at the college level either, because we had, depending on if the game is a team game or 1v1 or teams of 5 or whatever. And now we're running into, some have Xbox One, some have the new Xbox, some have the old, the PlayStation, some have the PS5. So it's. And then even we had our Hearthstone team, and we need 3. It's 3v3, but one of our students graduated, is now a graduate student, and he's ineligible. So we had like 2 players, and it's like they literally won the ECAC last fall and pumped to go into the spring, and we got 2 players on a 3. So we did actually find our 3rd player. But
that's what you're thinking. In this whole school, is there no one else that even halfway capable? And you just play for a week, we'll get you there. You're right. It's like,
yeah, it's a challenge, and even like it's been a challenging year too with not being in person to get our students. Everybody's focused on the different things going on, and so. I think there's been positives. There's pros and cons, but there's been some great positive elements that we've seen through esports through this, the challenging time. And then there's some things that have just been challenges. But I know when we get back, in person, when we continue to develop our arena, and when we, just kind of can close the chapter on this kind of space that we're in. We'll build those communities up so that we don't have to scramble to get extra players, and they'll be developing friendships. And my buddy plays this, or my friend plays that. And cool, invite them down to a game night, invite them down to a scrim, and let's build from there.
Yeah, and ideally, you would get to the point where, we're, as the high schools are feeding the university systems just like they do in in traditional sports, where even if you have 2 kids from the same school that have been playing on the same team, and going to schools based on scholarship and what's provided. The opportunities that are there. And so, one of my things is I'm always, the guidance counselors at my school are good too. They hear about stuff, they let me know. I hear about stuff, I let them know. As they tell students, what is, available. And, I tell my students, I'm like, showing up is half the game, really, or 90% of it. You just got to get there, Yeah. Because if you show up and you make a commitment, that's what universities want to see, right? They want to know that you're a team player. You can show up, you can do your job, right? And be a good teammate.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to tell them. Like, and there's opportunities, there's scholarships. You just got to stick with it and pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point. Some schools are offering scholarships. We're not at the point where we're offering them yet, but I'm an advocate of that, and I know that we're hoping to move in that direction. But it's about there are merit scholarships for academics. There are other areas. We had a lot of we do have an arena on campus, and we had a lot of schools actually. I think maybe you and I even might have had a conversation about. Just inviting some students down to come see like literally just come onto a campus. It might be the first time they're on a college campus. I don't think I was on one until, maybe later into my high school. Maybe I did go to a cultural event or something on one of the campuses, but meet a professor in the sense that, you'll meet me and we'll speak, but you'll also see, it's, you think about what a professor is. Well, professors can be, we're people too. I like to say in my classes, like we have interests. We love, I'm interested in gaming. I love technology, and there are students. We have common interests, and so the idea of inviting students to check out our arena. We had even thought about doing. We had a Smash tournament actually scheduled for April of last spring. And we were talking about possibly having like a high school invitational, and maybe just saying to the schools, we have our main event with our college students, but we're going to have a side event. If you'd like to come and show up and play some brackets and meet some other students. We'll have to think about how we piece all of those elements together, in the future. But the groundwork was there, and whether it's our drone lab, our Makerspace, the esports and gaming program, we've welcomed in schools, we've welcomed in community groups, and we want to continue to do that. We want to inspire, and we want to, be available to let students know that there's a lot of choices, there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of things you could pursue, and if your interests align, we'd love to have a discussion. And if there are other ways they align, other places, that's fine too. But I think community outreach is really important, and just being an open door so that we can in an informal way just help, especially the younger generation, think about, maybe some students don't picture themselves at a college or a university. They're intimidated, or they don't, maybe they are a first generation student, or maybe they, have different, concerns. It'd be a really nice icebreaker to just say, well, you're a gamer? Cool. Come check out our arena, hang out, meet some of the students on our team, and maybe they realize that they do have a pathway. So
that was the plan last spring, because I was going to go with our guidance department was doing a college visit to U Albany, and I was like, I know there's going to be enough room on that bus. I'm like, yep, I got a bunch of kids that we're going to go with you, and we're just going to do a little side tour.
Yeah.
And so I know I've talked to some other colleges as well with the same thing. I'm like, when we start doing college tours again, I know the guidance department has, trips to schools, then it's like, look, we're going to go with you.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go and play some video games. Hope that's okay. No.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're an open door. So, I mean, of course, you always have the invite, and Bob over at Hudson Valley, and Dan over at St. Rose, a lot of us. I mean, it's a small world. And so, there's a lot of opportunities for students interested in gaming to, engage and check out different places and see what's right for them. And, it's fun. It's nice for our student interns, our student leaders, and students on our team, as they're looking at becoming professionals in their world, whether that's as a developer, or as a teacher, or as someone pursuing a career in maybe game development. They're going to have to lead teams and be on teams and speak to people and engage with people. And so for me, that's saying to one of our captains, hey, we got a school coming in. I'm going to introduce myself and speak for a little bit, and I'd like you to introduce yourself and speak to the students and talk to them about how you got here and what your story is and what you're interested in. And that's really a nice opportunity I think for everybody. So it's a win-win. It's a win.
Wizards Professor, thanks for chatting with us tonight. And I'm sure Michael's happy to tell you all about U of A and get you caught up on what's going on there. And it is time for us to say goodnight, because I do have to teach tomorrow.
Yes. Well, we could do this. We could do this all night here. A lot of great stuff to talk about, and I really appreciate you bringing me on to your show and connecting with folks who have joined us in chat as well. I think you're doing a lot of great stuff, Scott. Appreciate it. I mean, I wish
you're doing great
I had
stuff
some wonderful. No, thank you. I had some wonderful teachers growing up, but I know it means a lot to the students to have a teacher like yourself who, this is a little bit unconventional, games and esports in school, but I know it means a lot in the lives of the students that we work with, and you're doing a great job. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. I try to do what I can. And I'll do it again tomorrow. Actually, we do have another match tomorrow. We got another rainbow match tomorrow, so we'll see how they do.
Awesome. Well, good luck.
All right. Thanks. And everyone else, good night, and I'll see you next time. Bye.